Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense with Chris, Roman, and Drew. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, drop a comment down below and let us know who you think will go first in this year's NFL draft. Today, we will be doing our 2021 NFL Rookie Skill Position Draft. How's it going, guys?
I'm good, Drew. I'm excited to get into this draft content from now into the next few weeks leading up to the draft. We're going to do a nice little introduction to the draft class. So far, from our evaluations, I think it's a little bit top-heavy, not as much depth as last year, but I'm excited to get into it with a fun draft similar to our last skill draft that we did.
I mean, when you say there's not a lot of depth, I agree to some extent, but then you go at the quarterback position and you go 5 deep. I mean, that's plenty of depth for me. I don't really care about any other quarterbacks after the first round anyway. And then this wide receiver class is incredible, probably even better than last year's incredible class. So I'm very excited to jump into that because there's a lot of interesting names, and there's probably guys I don't even have on my wide receiver draft board that you guys have pretty high because there's a lot of opinions, a lot of different guys that people like. I'm excited to get into it, man. So let's jump in. Drew, take us away.
Well, I don't have the first overall pick, so Roman is actually going to take us away.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to get the first overall pick again. I forfeited, I receded, but I guess the luck and fate chose me first. And last draft, I took Derrick Henry 1 overall, while Drew stole Mahomes right after from Chris. I'm not going to make the same mistake of taking a position that isn't as valuable, I guess you could say. I will go with the rightful first pick of the draft. I'll take Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson.
Yep, I don't really have anything to say about this pick. I knew you were going to take him at 1, so I already had crossed him off my board. Now the fun begins because I have to get into Drew's mind of who he's going to take. I think I know one of his picks already. I got to take one of my 2 favorite players in this class, no matter what I do with this pick. I think I'm going to let this guy fall back and take my favorite guy from this class. And you already know, I already took him in the NFL skill position player draft. I'm going to take tight end Kyle Pitts. And it might be a mistake to take a tight end, but I want to get him. He's my favorite player. I think he's the best player in this class in general. This guy is going to be an absolute animal day one. I'm thrilled to see what he does in the NFL.
I like that pick, and it's really funny because Drew was formatting the doc before we even started, and he randomly put in Lawrence and Pitts as the first 2 picks of the draft. So in a way, he definitely called it, but I should have known that Pitts was your guy, and I think he impressed so many people from his pro day. And he doesn't even have to be a tight end when he actually gets drafted. He can be used as a wide receiver. He can be used all over the place. But if we're looking at tight end specifically, he's the clear number 1, and I think there's not a lot of depth after that, which is why it'll be tough if the tight end 2 gets taken before me. But Drew, let's get into your picks.
Yeah, so Kyle Pitts was probably going to be one of the guys I took. Full disclosure, so I'm a little disappointed that Chris, you got him. But it leaves a lot of intriguing guys here. Some people are saying the top quarterback, maybe even better than Lawrence, is still on the board here. Obviously, no running backs have been taken. The receivers are still there. But for quarterback, I'm definitely gonna have to go Zach Wilson. He's getting a lot of hype right now as potentially going number 1 overall, which I don't think is gonna happen. But a lot of people think he deserves to go number 1 overall. I don't know why I put him as my QB2 though. But a lot of people are saying that he should go number 1 overall. He had a really nice pro day. I don't think he's gonna happen. He's probably gonna end up on the Jets or maybe San Francisco now that they have the 3rd overall pick. But in my opinion, I know you said Chris, but I think it was a pretty easy pick there to go Zach Wilson.
See, okay, this is what I don't get with Zach Wilson. Like, look, he's a good player. I'm not saying he can't be good. When you say quarterback 2 and then you don't say Justin Fields after that, I mean, I might be taking some picks here and showing my hand. I don't know, man. I don't really get it because, I mean, everyone moved him up after he, in my opinion, I think people moved him up after he made that one throw in his combine that everyone's raving about. Justin Fields made the same exact throw, and it was probably even further away and during his pro day yesterday. So I don't know, man. I think people are overreacting about that. He didn't play a lot of competition in college. Yes, he's talented. He's not the next Mahomes, though. He's not the next Mahomes. People keep saying that. I don't think he's that good. I think he's more of I mean, I don't even know who to compare him to. He's got a cannon, obviously, but like he didn't play a lot of competition in college. Let's wait to see what he does in the NFL. I don't know. I'm a little bit lower on him than probably both of you are, apparently, because I don't think he should be the second pick in the draft at all. I think he should be after multiple quarterbacks.
I think Wilson and Fields can be somewhat interchangeable depending on what traits you're looking at. And I think it's interesting for the Jets' perspective in terms of how they want to build out their team. They could either take a quarterback to be the heir apparent to Darnold and trade away Darnold, or trade away the pick, or draft an offensive lineman or a weapon. I think they have a lot of options, and I've even seen the rumors of the Jets taking Wilson and keeping Darnold, which makes no sense to me. But I think the Jets are going to have some work cut out for them deciding between Wilson and Fields. Like, I don't think it's a clear-cut Wilson at 2 either, but it definitely could play out that way.
I mean, for Fields, maybe it's a little Ohio State bias here, but like you look at previous Ohio State quarterbacks, none of them have panned out despite being very good. I know you're shaking your head because Fields, I think, is probably more talented, but there's a little hesitation there. And I just like the upside with Wilson a little bit more. And I don't know. I know they're equally talented, but
they aren't equally talented to me, man. The Ohio State. Okay. Another thing. This is another tangent. We'll jump into your next pick after this. The other thing with the Ohio State quarterbacks is, yes, Dwayne Haskins hasn't worked out so far. All of the other Ohio State quarterbacks have been like 5th-round draft picks in the NFL. They're not like these guys aren't bona fide superstar like prospects coming in. Justin Fields is in a different class from even Dwayne Haskins, and the other quarterbacks clearly are just not. I mean, yeah, they're 5th-round picks. JT Barrett, yeah, he didn't work out in the NFL because he wasn't projected to work out in the NFL. Braxton Miller had to change positions because he was like a 6th-round pick. No one cared about him. This is it should be a top 2 pick in my opinion, to me, and I don't know. I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. I mean, the dude ran a 4.4 in the freaking in his pro day, which hasn't happened since RG3. That's ridiculous. He's a crazy athlete, and I think he's a better passer than Zach Wilson as well. I think he has just as good of an arm. I don't know. To me, it's Justin Fields is the clear second best quarterback in this class, and I would be absolutely thrilled to draft him at the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft.
Hey man, there's only one way to find out, and that's when they strap the helmets on
that's
and
true.
Go out and play, and we'll see. So the general opinion, and this is something that I held before, and I'm still kind of keeping, is that Wilson's better than Fields, especially now he's getting a lot of traction. Some people, which I don't believe this, but some people are saying he might even be better than Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Chris, I remember seeing all the different like the pictures and the mock-ups of Fields in a Jets uniform, and that feels like an eternity ago, because Fields, I mean, there's some mocks that have him going as late as like 8, 9, 10. So,
well, if he goes that late, then the Lions really messed up because they should have taken him.
If he's as good as you think he is, though, man, that's a big steal to get him in the back half of the lottery. So, all right, so I'll go into my next pick. I was potentially thinking about going quarterback, but I have a feeling that there's going to be some guys here that'll still be available when I come to my next picks, potentially, or I might just wait because there's a few sleeper guys that I like as well. So it's really between, obviously, the best running back in the class or the best wide receiver. In my opinion, there's a more clear-cut best receiver than a clear-cut best running back. I know, Chris, you love one of the running backs, so I know you disagree with me there, but I'm going to go receiver, even though it's deep, but I really like this guy. I want him on my team, so I'm going to go Jamar Chase here.
Dang it. That was my next. See, this one, you're not going to get a complaint with me. I actually thought you were going to take Najee, and I was going to be excited because I wanted to get Jamar Chase, and I think he is an absolutely incredible player. He just ran a freaking 4.4 in the 40 as well, which I don't really care that much about 40 times when it comes to receivers as much as other people do. People lose their minds over those really fast receivers who are like, oh, this is the next Tyreek Hill. I just love seeing a guy that I already think is a fantastic all-around receiver run under a 4.5. I think that's ridiculous because I think Chase is that prototypical number 1 receiver, and I think, yes, I am all in on him as the number 1 receiver in this class. I think he is so much more talented than a guy, and that's nothing against a guy like Devontae Smith or a guy like Jalen Waddle. I think he's the clear-cut number 1 receiver in this class, so I am not happy that you picked him.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying. He has the size and speed. That's what you want in your wide receiver 1, as opposed to some of the other guys down the list that we'll talk about. You can't go wrong with Jamar Chase, and even though he opted out in 2020, he should be ready to go. with whoever team gets him. Hopefully, I've seen mocks of him all over the place, really early first,
Yeah.
mid first, like even the Lions might get him. I think if the Lions got him, that'd be excellent. But we'll see. I mean, I think he can. There's plenty of teams that could use a wide receiver one like him, and I'm interested to see where he goes. So good pick.
Yeah, I know everyone from the same college isn't the same player, but we look at what happened last year with Justin Jefferson, another former LSU guy. So I know Fields isn't like every Ohio State quarterback, and Chase obviously isn't like every LSU receiver, but there's a good track record there, and I think Chase could be a potentially really, really good wide receiver here for years to come. But Chris, I'll let you get into your second pick. I'm really fascinated to see where you go here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of backed into a corner now because you took who I wanted at receiver. So I got to get the best running back in the class. I'm going to take Najee Harris in this one. I think he is considerably better than any other running back. This is not a great running back class, that's for sure. When Roman said that he didn't think he thought this class was top heavy, it definitely applies to the running back position because I don't think there is anybody else that could even challenge Najee for the number one overall spot at running back. Personally, I think he is a perfect combination of size and speed. I think he can be a 3-down back in the league. I honestly don't know if any other running back in this class can be. I mean, yeah, there's Travis Etienne. I mean, he's a good player as well, but he's questionable hands. He's undersized a little bit. He's obviously faster than Najee, but he doesn't really have anything else on him. So I think Najee is the clear. If you want a bell cow running back, you're taking Najee Harris in the NFL draft. I could see him going in the first round of that draft.
Yeah, I agree. There's plenty of spots you can go to, whether it's Miami, the Jets at their second pick. I see him. I actually saw him mocked to Atlanta at 4 overall, which I don't think that will happen, but he definitely has the first round talent, whether he goes other places as well or early second, similar to like the Swift of last year's class where he could have gone first, but he went early second. That's a good pick, and you stole him from me because that's who I wanted to go with. It's a nice job.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I like mentioned the reasons why I took Chase is I do think there's more of a divide between Chase and the next receivers than Najee and a guy like Etienne. But at the same time, Najee is the clear-cut number one guy. He has the least amount of cons or some question marks with his game in comparison, like you mentioned, Chris. So those were the two guys I was debating between with my last pick. So I definitely agree with the pick. And Roman, I'll let you get into your next two picks here.
Yeah, you kind of have to force my hand a little bit. I do have back-to-back picks, so I will take a wide receiver and a running back. My first pick, I'm going to go with Travis Etienne. I think the second best running back in the class, although you can make an argument that he's the third. We'll probably get into that other guy later, but Travis Etienne is my running back one for my team, and I'm pairing him up with Trevor Lawrence, which is funny enough, both Clemson guys. But yeah, I think those two are Harris and Etienne are probably the top two running backs of the class, and even Etienne has some potential to go in the first round. Probably unlikely, but I think it's possible if a team's drafting on best player available and not just for need. I think there's some teams that could be in the running for Etienne, such as Buffalo perhaps, or even Tampa Bay, trying to get a backup for Rojo, potentially start in the future. Both teams, I think, should be interested in Harris and Etienne. And I'm not very excited about the rest of the running back class. No. I'll wait a little bit. So I'm glad I got Etienne with my first pick. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Etienne, when I say Najee's clearly the number one running back, doesn't mean Etienne's not a good player. He just, for me, isn't going to be – I don't think he's going to be that 3-down workhorse back. I think – don't hear what I'm not saying. I think he's more of like he's that Alvin Kamara type where he's going to get, 180 to 200 carries on the ground. He's going to grab 40 to 60 passes. I don't think he's as good as pass catcher as Kamara, and I don't think he ever will be. He's not quite as natural with his hands. I actually think Najee's a better pass catcher than him. But he has that, he has that speed, elusiveness. He's a little bit undersized at the running back position. He's not quite as big as some of the other workhorse backs, but I think he can be a really effective player in the NFL. And I am excited to see where he goes in the draft because I think, a destination like Buffalo would make a lot of sense and be really fun having that home run hitting running back because that's what he has over Najee. He has that top end speed. So I do like him a lot still.
So just to be clear, Chris, what you're saying is that Travis Etienne is the next Alvin Kamara, right? That's what I got from that.
Of course. That's exactly what I said.
Cool. All right. Just wanted to be confirmed.
And I have the back-to-back picks, obviously, so I will go wide receiver, as I alluded to, and I could pretty much take Waddle or Smith. That's who I'm looking at. I think both those two are somewhat interchangeable for me. Both have the speed, but without the size necessarily. I've seen mock drafts of both of them going ahead of each other, whether it's back to back. One's going early first, one's going mid first. I think sort of like CeeDee Lamb last year. I think he has a possibility of going anywhere on that spectrum because he went a little later than expected. I think both of these wide receivers could fall potentially depending on who's taken what. I mean, if the draft starts out with 4 quarterbacks in a row, I think both of them might fall a little bit. But I'm going to stick to my board. I have Jalen Waddle as the second best wide receiver in the class, so I'm going to go with him. And like I said, he has his speed without as much size. And I think that's what you have to look for with either Waddle or Smith. You're not going to get the size, but the speed is there. I think teams are trying to get the next Tyreek Hill. I don't think either of those guys can live up to that. There's no player that's comparable to Tyreek Hill, but I think he has the speed. Excuse me, and I think he's the next best wide receiver on the board for me.
Yeah, I like Waddle as a player. He is not my number 2 receiver in this class, but I do like him a lot. This is what I'm saying. When this class is extremely deep, I think there's a lot of guys that could be that number 2 guy. There's a lot of guys you could have pretty much anywhere ranked, and I wouldn't be that upset. I think Waddle is a very good receiver. He's got a size, or no, not size. He has an insane speed, and then he's a good receiver. He's not just a burner. Like there's a couple other receivers, and I may take one of these guys late in the draft that just have the speed and don't really have a whole lot of else. Kind of like, to me, a Henry Ruggs type, which is why I was a little bit out on him. Going so high, I wasn't as high on Ruggs. Waddle has the Ruggs speed, but he's also a better receiver than him, and did it at a younger age too. So I think he's got plenty of room to grow, and I think it could be a really good player. So I like the pick.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Chris. I don't know if Devontae Smith is the guy who's second on your board, but I like him a little more than Waddle. However, Waddle, it's very close. I would say Chase is in a tier by himself, and then I think Waddle and Smith are clear second.
I agree.
And there's a drop. So they're pretty interchangeable. So overall, like the pick. He's a really nice wide receiver one to have on your team there, Roman.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll jump into my next pick. Again, I'm kind of backed into a corner, but it's a corner that I like to be in here. I'll be the last guy to take my first quarterback. I'm going to take the guy I was just gushing about, Justin Fields. I think this is the guy you should be talking about when you're talking about a guy that can challenge Trevor Lawrence for the first overall pick, because I think he is just as talented as Trevor Lawrence. I think he's more fun. He's more fun to watch too, personally, to me. I think he's the most fun quarterback to watch in this class. He has a cannon for an arm. He's been a good quarterback throughout basically his whole college career. He's had a lot of people are going to knock him for the Northwestern game. It's one bad game, man. And he played so much better at the dude had probably broken ribs during the semifinal game and played one of the best quarterback games I've seen from a college quarterback. I think he was absolutely incredible in that game. Totally outdueled Trevor Lawrence while being injured. I think enough people aren't talking about that. I don't think enough people are talking about how fast this dude is. He's a dual threat quarterback. I don't know, man. I'm enamored with Justin Fields. I think if he falls anywhere outside of the top 2 picks, I think every GM made a mistake, because he should be going second overall. And I think if you're going to buzz about any quarterback going first overall, it should be him.
Just talking about the chain of Ohio State quarterbacks, as we touched on earlier, I do agree with you, Chris, that Fields is completely different than those guys. He's a completely different tier. I think he's the best quarterback that has come out of Ohio State, out of those groupings of players. And I think there's no question about it that Fields can be something in the NFL as opposed to those other guys. Whether he goes at 2, like I said, I don't know. I think him and Wilson are interchangeable depending on what traits you're looking at. Maybe Wilson has more upside and explosiveness, while Fields still has the speed, but maybe not as much potential, or doesn't have the skill necessarily reading the field. I know that was one of his biggest criticisms. He always goes to his first look instead of scanning the whole field. But Fields is very entertaining, really fast, as you already mentioned. And he definitely deserves to go early in the draft, but it depends on need. And I'm excited to see how the first 4 picks shake out, because obviously with the San Francisco trade, it got a whole lot more interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add, because Roman, you kind of touched on all the flaws that are in Fields' game, and we already had a long discussion between Fields or Wilson early on in the episode. But the upside is clearly there, especially if he drops. As far as a lot of mocks have him dropping, and if you look at some of the people, it's not like they're just a bunch of talking heads on TV or online. Well, a lot of them are like legitimate sources saying that Fields is falling on teams' draft boards, and that Zach Wilson, even guys like Trey Lance, and maybe even Mac Jones are
Oh,
passing
jeez,
Fields.
please, dude, please be
I'm
the
just
one to.
saying. There's a lot of people. I'm not saying that's what I feel like. I'm saying that's what a lot of people. Reports are saying that there's a lot of concerns with Fields that Roman highlighted. I don't necessarily believe that. I think much like with Waddle and Smith for the wide receivers, I think the second tier you can I'm a little I know you're big on Lance too, Chris. I'm a little lower on Lance. But I still think Fields and Wilson are pretty interchangeable as the second best QB in this class. So overall, I like the pick. I was hoping he would drop because I was probably going to take him with one of these next two picks to have two really good quarterbacks. But again, I'm ready for them to lace them up right now and go out in the field and we can see who's better between Wilson or Smith.
I can answer that question for you right now. It's definitely Fields, and I'm not addressing you when I say the Mac Jones stuff. I hope to be in a fly on the wall of the team that's going to draft Mac Jones over Justin Fields, because that will be ridiculous. I'm not as high on Mac Jones ever. I mean, I don't really know why everybody's like. There's people think he's going to go in that top four. That's the guy I don't get that should go inside the top four. Yeah, he's a good player. He should be a first round pick, and he's probably going to be good in the NFL. But he doesn't have the upside of any of those top four guys. And I'm not going to be the one to not take a guy that could run a 4.4, which again the 40 times overrated. But he's a super athlete plus an absolute cannon for an arm. Was awesome in college over a guy that is probably just going to be a pocket passer in the NFL. I'm not going to be able to make that decision. But if people that are smarter than me end up making the mistake, go ahead. I don't get it. I don't get it. If he goes before Fields, I will be flabbergasted.
And I'm sure we'll talk more about Mac Jones, obviously, whenever one of us picks him. But there's a lot to talk about there, and I'm excited to get into it at that point. But Drew, you have back-to-back picks, so I'm excited to see what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, I maybe kind of teased it earlier. I knew Chris was going to take one of these two players with his next pick, so I figured whatever one falls to me, I'm going to take him. And it's Devontae Smith. I know already have a receiver, but I think there's a clear tier break after him. So I'm happily take, in my opinion, the two best receivers in this class, along with a really good quarterback in Wilson as well. We already kind of talked about him earlier, so I'm not sure if anyone has anything more they want to add about Devontae Smith, but I think he has many of the pluses and many of the negatives as Waddle. They're both from the same college as well. But he's the Heisman Trophy winner. I think he deserved that, earned that for a reason. And I think any team would be happy to have him. And I think there's a chance he falls to like the mid to late first round, much like you said, Roman, with having the CeeDee Lamb last season. So, I'm really happy to get Devontae Smith on the team.
Yeah, with Smith, he's a great player, super productive in college. I think people are worried about, the thin frame, and that's a valid concern. I think it's a valid concern for sure, whether or not he can hold up in the NFL. This dude isn't some weakling though. Like some people are like worried that he's just like really weak. He's got a thin frame. He's still a strong dude. He's getting drafted in the first round in the NFL. He's not some wimp. This guy's going to be. I think he's going to be a good player for plenty of years to come. He can beat press coverage. He's got absolute burners as well. He's great after the catch. He could easily be the number one receiver in this class when we look back in a year and everyone's like, oh yeah, we're so stupid for not thinking he could hold up in the NFL or whatever. I think a lot of people are going to be looking back at that. Yeah, I have Chase over him, but Smith is a great player as well. And, I have nothing but praise for him. I think he's going to be really good in the NFL.
I'm interested to see where you guys, like, in terms of the rankings of these players, where Pitts would fall into that in terms of receiving ability, in terms of being a weapon. Do you have Pitts ahead of a guy like Chase, or do you have him above guys like Waddle and Smith? Or I'm interested because I think once Chase is off the board, I think Pitts is the next best weapon as opposed to Smith or Waddle.
I've told you my opinions on Pitts. I think he's the best player in this entire draft class in terms of just pure talent. So I would take him over anybody in terms of, if you're just talking about, if I was a team with absolutely no needs that just got to pick straight up based on talent, I would be taking Kyle Pitts at the 101. Obviously, that's not going to be the case because quarterback's so much more important. A lot of teams need quarterbacks. Not everybody needs a tight end. Totally makes sense. But you're talking in that hypothetical situation, I'm taking Pitts 101. Because I think he's that good. I think he's basically a wide receiver and a tight end. If you listed him at either one, he'd be the best one in the class, in my opinion. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I think I I would say Chase probably a little bit over Pitts,
But
but
Chase
it's
the beast.
very close. And I think like Chris, you said Pitts is over Chase. I'm not going to disagree with that. I think both are uber talented, and I think Waddle and Smith. When you're looking at, I know tight end's basically like a glorified receiver in many ways. So I think Smith and Waddle are below both those guys. So I think Pitts is better than those guys, but I think Chase is a little bit better, but
That's
it's
fair.
very close. It's very close. I can jump in now to my next pick here. It's tough because like I could go quarterback. I think there's one more clear cut good quarterback, no questions asked on there. But there are some guys I like later on that I think I could still get. I don't have a running back yet. There's two guys I like there as well. Definitely not going receiver. There is a clear tight end I want as well, but I'm not taking a tight end this high. If I get the worst tight end on the board, who cares? So I think I'm going to go running back. It's tough between these two guys. I think I'm going to have to go with Javonte Williams, though. I think he's the third best running back. I'm interested to see what you guys think because I think you can make some arguments for some other guys as well. But I kind of forced myself into a corner here to go running back, and I'm worried you guys might load up on the running backs with these next picks, and I get stuck with a guy even worse than Williams. But I still think he's a solid player. He got some good speed. There are some concerns because he played in the ACC, didn't play a ton of great teams, but I think he's going to be the third running back off the board in the real life draft.
Yep.
So it just makes sense that he's going to be the third one off the board in our draft as well.
I mean, I like, yeah, maybe he's not great for a number 3 running back in a class, and this is why the class isn't that great. But Javonte Williams is still a good player, and he's going to make an impact on whatever team he's gets drafted to. I don't think he's going to come in and be a workhorse guy right away, but he's extremely shifty. He doesn't have that top end speed that a guy like ETN does, but he's right around the Najee Harris, 4-5-ish range in terms of maybe game speed, I would say. Or he's probably around that range, right with Najee. He's got some pass catching chops too. He's got some all around ability. I'm wondering just what his role is going to be with an NFL team. I do like him though. I think if he does end up with a workhorse role, he would be a good running back in the NFL. Maybe he doesn't have the upside of a guy like Etienne or Najee, but I do like Javonte Williams a lot. I think he's a talented running back and a guy that I would be happy to draft on my team.
I do have Williams as a running back 3. I think both the running backs coming out of North Carolina are interesting to me. Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. I don't think maybe Carter will get drafted in our draft right here. I'm not sure, but Williams is the clear 3 in the class. I don't have much to add with you guys.
Yeah, he's a great player and definitely was warranted some interest at my next pick as well. So good for you. But I'm going to take, and I didn't really say a whole lot about where I had receivers ranked. I'm going to take my wide receiver 2 of the class, and this is another love affair I have with a receiver that I'm higher on than everybody else is, and that is wide receiver out of Minnesota, Rashad Bateman. I think he is going to be an absolute stud in the NFL. I really like those all-around receivers coming out of college. I think he's got more of a refined game that he's going to come in and make an impact right away. He's starting to fall a little bit on drafts, which has me a little bit worried. He's starting to fall into, like the 20s and stuff. I don't really get it, man. I think to me, I'm not comparing him to Justin Jefferson, but I think he can make a Justin Jefferson-like impact in his rookie year. I think he's got the all-around skill set. He can run around, a high 4.4, low 4.5. So he's not a burner, but I think he's got the contested catch ability. He's a great route runner. He's got great hands. There's not really a lot of weaknesses in his game, and I think that's going to make him really interesting target for some of those, around the playoff teams that end up. He's going to fall a little bit in the draft, in my opinion. I think he's going to fall into the 20s, but that's also what happened to Justin Jefferson. So I'm not worried about taking him here at this point in the draft. I think he's a great player, and I'm still enamored with him.
Yeah, in terms of the board for wide receivers, I have Bateman as my 4th wide receiver, and I do expect him to be the 4th wide receiver off the board in the actual NFL draft. But in terms of talent, you can definitely make a case that he's up there. He has the size. He does have a little injury concerns, and he opted out, so there wasn't a whole lot to watch with him this past season. But I'm excited for him. I do think he could go in the first round. Like you said, Chris, there are some teams in that range that need a wide receiver desperately. So I'm excited to see where he goes, and I think he'll be a great weapon right away once he's drafted.
Yeah, I think of the receivers left on the board, I think he's the best one available. But I think a lot of the concerns that both you guys really highlighted with the speed, Yeah, he's big, but he also has some injury concerns. He opted out last season. Who knows how he's going to be? That could be a good thing. Maybe he's in the best shape of his life. Maybe he's not in great shape. I don't know. There's some more question marks with him than I think the three guys that were already taken. But again, with the receivers on the board, I like the pick, Chris. Even though I'm definitely not as high on him as you are. But Roman, let's get into your next two picks.
Yeah, I'm looking at this quarterback class. I just want to take this guy right now. I'm taking Trey Lance as my second quarterback. Although Mac Jones is interesting to me, Trey Lance I think will go ahead of him, and he's the most potential. I think he didn't have a full season. He only had one game last year, but he did impress people at his pro day. Did overthrow some people. I think that he has to work on the accuracy a little bit, but I think in terms of potential and upside, I think he has it just as good as anyone else. And I'm excited he's on my team, and I'm interested to see what you guys do with your quarterback slots, because after Jones, I think I think there's one guy left that I would take, but I'm interested to see what you guys think. But Lance, I think I don't know if he's a quarterback 4, but I think he's definitely interesting in terms of talent.
He's definitely my quarterback. He's inside my top 4. I have him over Wilson too. I think he's the third best quarterback in this class. But I'm not as high on Wilson as everybody else is. I don't know. I think he's going to be good. That's the guy I would be willing to take a shot at like 8 or 9. But I think Lance, he's right around that range. He is very close to Wilson. I think there's a clear 1 and 2, and then those two after it. But I really like Lance as well. I think he's a super athlete, similarly to Justin Fields. I really like those Konami code quarterbacks that can do it all. They're just all around, just cheat code on the field. I think he's going to be a lot like that. And where I think him and Fields are a little bit different is that I think it's going to take a little while for Lance to develop his game. I think if he sits for a year and then develops, because he played in a little bit of a smaller school as well, similarly to Zach Wilson. I think he sits for a few games, maybe half a year, develops, and then comes in for the starter. I think he's going to make a positive impact and have a very good career in the NFL. And I do definitely really like Trey Lance. So I'm upset you took him there. That was going to be my next pick.
I do. I'm sorry to cut you off, Drew, but I do agree with you when you say that Lance needs to sit a few games, maybe even a whole season before he starts, because he's still a bit raw.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think if he can sit behind a Matt Ryan, or if the Lions took him sit behind a Goff for a couple games or a year, I think that's kind of the ideal situation for him. And yeah, take it away, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the 4th best guy there. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris, because you were criticizing Wilson for the small sample size, the small school, all that stuff. And Lance played 1 game last year, I believe. He's really only played, my stats say he only played really 1 full season so far. It was a great season. Talent's definitely there. Potential's definitely there. But yeah, I think he has to – I feel like, in my opinion, Lawrence, Fields, and Wilson, for the most part, you can probably throw them in their rookie year and they can at least produce – or they at least have the ceiling of being a productive rookie quarterback, like we saw last year with guys like Burrow before he got injured, and obviously Justin Herbert as well. And Lance, I just don't see that happening. I think he's more of a developmental project, a guy you can get, like you said, back half of the 8, 9, 10, back half the lottery, that range. But I would still, I know we keep talking about Zach Wilson, but I still think Zach Wilson is better than Trey Lance, at least in my opinion.
Sure.
Even though the upside might not fully be there. I don't know, actually. No, I think Wilson does have the upside. So, yeah, I like Wilson more than Lance, but I think he was clearly the best quarterback available for you, Roman. I, for some reason, thought Chris took him because Chris was the one defending him. So, yeah, no arguments here, but I just wanted to throw that in there that I think Wilson is better than Lance, if that wasn't obvious already.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And for my next pick, I could definitely go with wide receiver, but like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, it's super deep, so I don't have the urgency to take one right away. I don't feel like walking away with the 3rd best tight end of the class, and I'm just gonna get rid of that tight end position for me right now. I'm taking, Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. I've seen him mocked in the 1st round, and that was very early on in the season, maybe early off season, but now he's definitely a 2nd round pick for me. I don't see him sneaking up into the 1st, but I guess it's possible. But with the emergence of Pitts having such a great season and such measurables, I guess it kind of bumped down Freiermuth a little bit for me. And I think he's the tight end 2 in the class.
Yeah, I don't think Pitts being so in my opinion, a generational talent at tight end. Takes away from a guy like Pat Fryermuth. I think he had a very productive few seasons with Penn State. I think he's a good all-around tight end. Yeah, he's not quite the super athlete that Kyle Pitts is. I could definitely see him sneaking into the first round for a team that does need a tight end in the playoff race. I think that's a possibility for sure. Maybe Buffalo. That would be a very interesting destination for him to go as well, because they don't really
I've seen him knock to Jacksonville too.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad destination either in terms of just they need a tight end. But for me, going to Buffalo for him would be a really sexy pick. I think that would make a lot of sense for both parties. And Fryermuth, on a normal year, I think he would be more highly regarded, but he's gone a little bit under the radar just because of how good how good of a prospect Kyle Pitts is. But I definitely like Fryermuth. I think he's a first or second round pick. But if he sneaks into the first round, I'm definitely not gonna be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it makes my job a whole lot easier because now I'm just going to wait and take a tight end with my last pick. But he was definitely the clear-cut number 2 guy. I think a lot of people call him Baby Gronk as well, too. So he's got a little Gronkowski in his game. Definitely not as good as Pitts. But, yeah, with the guys available, he's definitely the clear-cut number 2 guy. I was considering taking him with one of my next 2 picks. But, Roman, you got him. So I'd say so far you got a pretty nice team, though. But, Chris, I'll let you get into your next picks.
Yeah, and this is where the road gets tough because I think there's a major tier break after the number 3 running back. So I think I'm going to wait on running back. I also think there's a major tier break at quarterback, so I'm going to wait on quarterback. But then again, I also think there's a major tier break at wide receiver. But I do really like the player that I have at number 5 at receiver. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. It is another Big Ten wide receiver. It is Rondale Moore from Purdue. Similarly to Rashad Bateman, didn't play a whole lot this year, was injured, has some injury concerns, but Moore is an absolute burner. This guy, besides his being extremely undersized, he is a really good receiver. I think he's super athletic. He's got a 42-inch vertical, which is ridiculous as well. He can go up and get jump balls more than people think at what is 5'8", 5'9", 5'7" frame. I'm not sure exactly what his height is, but he's definitely undersized. But I think as a slot receiver, as a absolute burner, I think he can make a extremely positive impact in the NFL. I think he's going to be another round 1 receiver taken on. I think he's going to go to a good organization too, because I think somebody has a plan for him and they're going to take him in the first round. I could see him going over Bateman even potentially in the draft because I think he has a more specialized need to his game. So I'm excited for Rondale Moore, and he's another one of the receivers that is why I am such a big fan of this receiving class.
I don't think he'll go in the first round. I did have one wide receiver over, one other wide receiver over Rondale Moore, who I think we'll touch on in a little bit. And you did point out the injury history, which is a concern, obviously, for teams. So I think that's pretty much the reason I think he'll go in the second round, although he is a great talent, and I like how you paired up 2 Big Ten receivers together.
Yeah, I actually kind of disagree with you there, Roman. I thought Moore and Bateman, I thought were kind of like that, and we keep talking about tiers with receivers, but I thought they made up that 3rd tier. So I really like the pick, Chris. I still think that you didn't really get one of the best top 3 receivers in the draft,
sure.
But you got the 4th and 5th guys, in my opinion, which I think is really solid. You got a really deep receiving core. And I like the pick, especially based on the guys that are still available. But unless we got anything else to add, I can hop into my next 2 picks here. It made my job pretty easy. I know the 2 guys I'm going to take right off the bat. So I'll start with the quarterback. It's Mac Jones. There is, in my opinion, a tier break after Mac Jones. There is one other guy that I like, and I'm interested to see, Chris, maybe if you take him. If not, I'll just mention him later on. But I think it's Mac Jones. I know he's got a lot of limitations. He's another guy. He's almost like Zach Wilson Jr., where nobody was talking about him, and then it seems like the last month or so, Mac Jones has been getting a lot of steam. As I said earlier in the episode, Jones is probably going to be a top 10 pick, which is really surprising. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a month ago he was going to be a 2nd round pick, and now he's probably not going to fall past the top 15 at the latest. So he's got. It's hard with Alabama quarterbacks, very similar to it's hard with Ohio State quarterbacks. Even with Tua Tagovailoa, he was supposed to be the second coming, and he was not great his rookie year. Jalen Hurts was decent last year though, so I guess there's some decent guys. Then you get into AJ McCarron, but Mac Jones has some positives in his game. He's worth a risk if you miss out on the top 4 guys, just to see what happens there. Not the most physically gifted guy, at least with his shirt off, at least. But I think he's still got some nice tools, and I think he's the clear next guy. So, anyone got anything to add with Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, you can go, Chris.
Go ahead, man.
I'm just interested to see if he actually goes to San Francisco or not, because a lot of the rumors coming out of San Francisco trading up to 3 was that they're going for Mac Jones. And to me, I mean, I don't know if I missed anything, but it doesn't seem like Jones did anything to raise his stock to go up to 3 overall. I mean, I don't think he did much of anything to really prove he can be that kind of quarterback. But I think it's interesting to look at San Francisco trading up more so as a need and not so as a talent. It's kind of weird. I'm still a bit shocked by it because Shanahan wants a quarterback similar to Jimmy G, and he wants to go get Mac Jones. But why would you go from to a quarterback to another similar person who are pretty much the same person? I mean, like, you could get a Fields. I think Fields would be much better off at 3 overall, or a Lance than the Mac Jones. I really don't know what to make of it. I mean, if he did go 3 overall, that would be pretty insane. Because I do think he was the clear-cut 5 in the class. And I do think if he didn't go 3 overall, he's definitely going the mid-first round now. But I don't think he did anything to raise his stock. I think maybe San Francisco could have given up way too much for him when they could have gotten him if they could have traded up earlier, but not 3 to get him. You didn't have to do that.
I mean, okay, I think people are overreacting about San Francisco getting Mac Jones particularly. Yes, they did go to his pro day. Maybe they already had scouted Justin Fields and they wanted to see Mac Jones live. I'm not really sure what the thought process is with that. I don't think he's a lock to go number 3 overall just because they traded up. And that's a lot to give up just to move up and get Mac Jones, because I don't think he's some generational talent. He's a safe quarterback that I think will benefit if he gets selected to a team with pretty good weapons already and a pretty good system. I think Carolina makes a lot of sense for Mac Jones because he could use a little bit of time under Teddy Bridgewater to learn. Because Mac Jones could be like a hyped up version of a Teddy Bridgewater, where he's like a really good game manager potentially. I don't think Mac Jones has the upside of any of the guys in the top 4, but he is a very accurate quarterback in the short and intermediate throws. He does have a good arm. He's more mobile than people think, but he's definitely the least mobile out of the 5 guys in the top of the class, which I think is important depending on where he goes. But I think the San Fran thing at 3 has been totally overblown. Yeah, maybe he ends up going number 3 overall, which would be an absolute mistake. And I don't care that San Fran's a good organization. I think that's an idiotic decision if he goes 3. But I think people are overreacting a little bit based on them going to his pro day. Maybe they just wanted to see him live. They hadn't seen him play or something like that. I'm not really sure, but I don't think it's as big of a deal, and I don't think it's them totally tipping their hand at who they're taking at 3.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely not the most physically talented guy of quarterbacks. He's benefited from being in a really good situation with Alabama, but his stats are really good last year. As you said, Chris, he's a really good distributor of the football. He's accurate. And I think, honestly, if San Francisco takes him 3rd overall, I think that's dumb, because I think they probably could have got him at number 12, unless they know something that we don't, which they probably do. I think San Francisco would actually be a really good situation, because I think if you put him in a situation where there's good weapons around him, he's not going to lose you games. He's probably going to win you a few games, and he's going to get the ball to those playmakers and let them win the game. So he reminds me of not in terms of talent, but in terms of the type of player they are, almost like maybe like a Tony Romo, maybe a Kirk Cousins, a guy who's not going to lose you games, but if you put him in the right, he's not going to win you games. But if you put him in the right situation, he's going to play really well, and he's going to help you be a good team. But I'll jump into my next pick. Again, you mentioned it there, Chris. There is a bit of a tier break with running backs. There's a guy that I like that is still on the board. He's 4 on my list of running backs. Maybe I'm a little biased because I liked Antonio Gibson, and I believe he went to Memphis last year. So I'm going with Kenneth Gainwell, rounding out both my quarterback core and my running back core. Much like you, Chris, I feel like Gainwell and Williams are clearly not the top running backs. Like, you got clearly not best receivers, but I still think I like my depth a lot, and I think there is a bit of a tier break after Gainwell. There's another guy I was debating about if you went with Gainwell with your last pick, but I'm really happy to get Kenneth here with my whatever 6th pick.
Yeah, that was my next pick, so I'm not happy about that. I think Gainwell is similar. I don't think he's a huge drop-off from Javonte Williams. He's definitely the clear 4th running back, in my opinion. He's got the pass-catching chops. He was very productive at Memphis. I think he's going to be a great player. He's not the same player as Antonio Gibson. I think Gibson was a considerably better running back, even though he didn't get the ball a ton. But Gainwell, I mean, there was no arguing with the fact that Antonio Gibson didn't get that many carries because Gainwell was their top back. He's more of a traditional back coming in. I think he has some pass catching chops. He's not the same athlete as Gibson. Don't get me wrong, but he has considerable speed. He has a little bit of size. He can catch the ball as well. I definitely like Gainwell. I think if he comes into a timeshare, he can start to win over that job and then end up potentially being a workhorse running back within a year or two, I think. And I've said it for pretty much every player that I like that isn't projected to go at the top of the first or maybe as a second round pick. Buffalo, another team that would make some sense to get Kenneth Gainwell. I think he would fit in nicely with their rotational backs, and then he can end up taking over the workhorse role there.
Yeah, nothing to add there. I think he's a diamond in the rough, similar to Gibson. I think he'll go in maybe second to mid rounds, and it's a good pick. I think there's a couple other running backs who I would have considered as well that I'm sure Chris and I will take sooner or later. But I'm excited to get into your next pick, Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to need to stall for a second because I am not sure exactly who I want to take. This is I'm not happy that you took Gainwell because I didn't really have any picks lined up.
I almost took Gainwell with my last running back pick. I was debating between him and Williams. I felt like Williams was probably higher on a lot of your guys' board, so I wanted to make sure I got him. So I was really happy that he dropped. I was definitely once you said, because I knew Jones and Gainwell were the two guys I wanted. And when you said, I'm not going quarterback or running back, I was like, awesome. So I'm going to get both the guys I want. But I'm trying to stall here for you. So I'm not sure if you're able to have a pick up ready yet.
I mean, I want to go receiver, but there's a lot of guys that I like here. God, and I don't really there isn't really any running backs that I like coming up. I don't know. I'm trying to decide. I'm going to continue to stall. I guess I'll go with Michael Carter from North Carolina. I'm not as enamored with him as some people are. I don't think him and Javonte Williams are even close to the same tier of player at North Carolina, where some people think they're very interchangeable. Michael Carter is I think he's more of a timeshare running back. He can make a positive impact. He's got some burst. He can definitely catch the ball. He's got pretty good hands. He's a fine player. I don't have any problems with Michael Carter, but he's not someone I'm super enamored with to have on my team like I've been with, Bateman and Moore. I've been very happy to get those two guys. Carter is just a guy that fills a need for my roster. And I think after him, it's murky waters. And I have no idea who you're going to go with as your running back too, Roman. But there's a guy that I have at 6 and I kind of want to trash him. So I'm hoping you pick him because I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, I think we might be on the same page. I mean, there's, like you said, it's not a whole lot of depth with running backs, but there is a name I have in mind that I will be taking last in the draft since you guys don't have any more running backs to take. But since I have back-to-back picks, I'm going to double up on my receivers now. My first one is going to go Kadarius Toney out of Florida. He could be projected to go the first round, which I thought was a bit interesting because obviously he was in the same offense as Pitts, and they both did really good. I've seen some highlights of him. I was a bit hesitant to take Toney because I think he just rose up somewhat out of nowhere, so I'm not as familiar with him as I am with the rest of the wide receivers, but I do think he's a good wide receiver that, like I said, could go in the first round, but if not, he'll be early second for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with Toney, he's got a lot of talent, but this is to me, this is a guy, I think there's a lot of guys you could have at number 6 in this receiving class. I do not have him at number 6 in mine personally, but I think he is a talented player that if he gets drafted in the right situation can make a positive impact for his team. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think now is where, there's a lot of these guys can be, late first round, early to mid, late second round picks. And I'm fine having, I'm assuming you have him as your 6th ranked or maybe even higher wide receiver if you're taking him now. But I don't have him quite as high, but I'm not going to complain with the pick because I think he definitely has some talent, or not a lot of talent for sure. Definitely not some talent, but we'll have to see where he goes. I mean, I think landing spot's pretty important with a guy like Toney, though.
Yeah, of the guys available, Toney was definitely, in my opinion, the best guy still on the board. So I like the pick. I was hoping he maybe I didn't think he would because you had two receiver spots to fill. So I was hoping he maybe dropped to my next pick. But overall, really love the pick, and I'll let you get into you. I think you said you're going double receivers here, right?
Yeah, I need to get some size now, and I think maybe the biggest guy available is Terrace Marshall Jr. at LSU. We talked about in the same vein as Jamar Chase. I mean, LSU has been producing good wide receivers the past couple of years. So I think in the same sense that Jamar Chase is a good talent like Jefferson, I think Terrace Marshall will be a great wide receiver for whoever drafts him. I kind of want to see him in Baltimore because I think Baltimore needs that wide receiver one, and Lamar Jackson needs a guy that's big as Marshall. So in that sense, I'm excited to see where he goes. I think he's going to be a great weapon for whoever drafts him. Similar to Chase, but they both were on the same offense with Jefferson as well. So it's pretty much wide receiver you the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean LSU has been breeding really good wide receivers, and I'm pretty sure they're not done as well. There's I can't remember his name, but there's another guy that I believe is highly highly regarded in either the 2022 or 2023 draft. I'm blanking on his name, but I'm pretty sure they have another guy in there that's an absolute stud too. Yeah, with Marshall, he's definitely not as good as Justin Jefferson. He's definitely not as good as Jamar Chase, but that should not take away from the kind of player he is. He's a talented receiver that can he will most likely, I agree, I think he's going to be a late first round pick. Out of all this grouping of names, I think he's going to end up being one of the ones that goes in the first round. I like Marshall. I'm not insanely high on him. I'm higher on him than I am Tony, though. I think he's better than Tony in my opinion. And I think he is that more prototypical one. There's definitely some work he has to do, polishing off his game. But what prospect after the top 5 is a perfect prospect? So, I think he's a guy that I'd be willing to. It's a perfect guy to have at your wide receiver 3 in this draft because I think he's got a lot of upside as wide receiver 1, and it's also worth the risk. So I like the pick.
Yeah, Tony and Marshall, the two. It sounds like a law firm, Tony and Marshall, but it's they're the two guys that I had next on my board. So I'm a little bummed out you took them, Roman. But yeah, I love both the picks for all the reasons you guys said.
Yeah, and my wide receiver 6 is still on the board, but I'm actually not going to take him because he doesn't really fit. Similarly to Roman, I mean, Bateman is decently sized, but Rondell Moore is so small. This guy is very similar to Rondell Moore, and if I didn't get him, I was going to take this other guy because I love this player, and I'm going to mention him if Drew doesn't take him. But I'm going to take wide receiver out of USC, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's not maybe as physically gifted as a guy like Terrace Marshall, but I think St. Brown is going to be a reliable NFL receiver. I think he's got a well-rounded game, a skill set that I like. You can notice with him and Bateman, they both are not crazy fast at receiver. St. Brown runs another guy runs around that 4.5 range. I think 40 times are a little bit overrated at receiver. I'm a little bit more interested at running back. The guys with the most burst, I guess. But at receiver, I'm really interested in that, all around skill set. I think Brown's got that. I think a common comparison to St. Brown has been Robert Woods, and I'm a huge Robert Woods fan. So I think, and he's actually he's a little bit more physically gifted than Woods too. So if he can become a similar player to Woods, which it did take Woods a little while to break out in the NFL, I think St. Brown can be a very helpful receiver to an NFL team. Maybe he's not going to be that, high-end number 1 receiver, doesn't have that crazy upside, but I think he's going to be a steady, that 1A, 1B guy for an NFL roster or just a really, really good wide receiver too. But I think he probably will sneak into the second round in my opinion, but I'm a big fan of him. He is my wide receiver 7 in the class. I think he's going to be a great player.
Yeah, St. Brown was my wide receiver 8. He was my next best available player. So I like the pick, and I think you could have done a much better job. So nice job.
Yeah, he was my next guy too. So you guys just really screwed me over here with these last 3 picks.
Very curious to see who you go here at wide receiver because there is
my
number 6 guy is still on the board.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone else is going to have him at 6. So I'm curious.
I do have one wide receiver available at my number 9, who I think that's the guy you're talking about, Chris, because I've heard you talk about him before, but I'm interested to see if Drew takes him.
Yeah, this is a big guy. The guy I'm picking is going to be a big guy.
Not this guy.
In my opinion, he's based on my board, based on the research I did last night. Seems like he's the only guy that's probably going to have the potential to go in the first round. There are some concerns because he opted out of last season. And then he was injured the last couple of games of 2019. But the ceiling is there for him to be a big guy, a contested catch specialist. So I'm going to go with Sage Surratt from Wake Forest. That's my next guy here. Any comments, concerns?
He's not on my board personally, but like you said, I mean, this is a deep wide receiver class. It's a guy that I'm not quite as familiar with. I mean, he played at Wake Forest. I'm not a huge Wake Forest fan, so I'm not saying I hate them either, but I don't really watch a lot of Wake Forest. But Surratt is definitely going to be, he's a highly touted prospect, has some size, like you said. I mean, he can be a good player, man. I don't have any complaints with the pick because, like you said, there's a ton of guys that you could take at the wide receiver 9 position in terms of where the draft's going. I don't have any complaints with the pick. There's some guys I would definitely take over him, which I'll mention the 3 guys that I have ranked over, I would say over him. But, I'm interested to see who you take at this tight end position to end it.
Well, I'm interested to hear who the other receivers are.
Was Eli Moore one of them?
Yes, that is my wide receiver 6, and I'm a huge fan of Elijah Moore. I think he's similarly to Rondell Moore, he's a little bit undersized, but I think he's a burner. He can run that slot receiver position as well. He's one of the better ones in the class, but I had Rondell Moore already, so I decided not to take him. The other guys I have, Tylan Wallace from Oklahoma State. I think he's going a little bit under the radar in this class. I think he's a good player, and that's who I thought you were going to go with when you said contested catch specialist, because this is a guy that can go up and get the jump ball. I think he played with a little bit less talent around him, and also didn't have a great quarterback situation either. So I think really went under the radar a little bit compared to some of these guys that went to bigger schools and had better options. And then the other guy I have over him, and this is totally a speed specialist, that's Anthony Schwartz. I don't think he's maybe as good of a receiver as Surratt, but he's the fastest receiver in this class. He's an absolute burner. I thought about taking him at wide receiver 3, but I figured someone would be targeting Amon-Ra St. Brown, so I decided to go with him instead. But I think Schwartz, in terms of just his speed, speed profile, is going to be an impact player in the NFL.
Yeah, I also had De'Ami Brown and Amari Rogers too. I was looking at both.
Dwayne Eskridge, also shout out to him, Western Michigan player. He might go in the first round too, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. He's gonna be a good player too. I should have had him at least as a guy that was on my draft board. I think he's gonna be a really good player.
Yeah, I got nothing much to add there. So
yeah, I mean they were all good. Like I could have taken any of them.
Right.
I just kind of needed a guy, so I went with him. So for my last tight end, I mean, in my opinion, there's one guy I've seen a lot of comparisons to him to Eric Ebron. Clearly not the best tight end, but I gotta work with what I got here is what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna go with Brevin Jordan.
Yep.
I think he's clearly the 3rd best guy. I have seen some people say he's a little bit better than Freiermuth. I don't really agree with that, but not the worst tight end to have. He's probably going to go 2nd or 3rd round. It has some potential upside there. So yeah, overall, I'm content with that pick and content with my overall draft.
Yeah, with Brevin Jordan, he's a little bit more of that inline tight end than a guy like, well, definitely a lot more than Pitts, but a little bit more than Freiermuth. I think Freiermuth's a little bit more versatile, but Jordan's a good player. I think he's going to be a decent blocker in the NFL, as well as a good inline pass catcher. He's not that insane vertical threat, insane athlete like some of the other, recent star tight ends coming out of the draft have been, but I think he can make a positive impact in the NFL. And I think he'll probably, like you said, go 2nd, 3rd round. And he could end up being a steal, man. If he ends up being a little bit more athletic than people think, I think he can be a really good tight end. He's got some upside as well. So I'm not, getting him in the last round when I took Pitts in the 1st round. I don't think that's like a terrible thing. And he's definitely the clear-cut 3rd tight end in the class, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wrote down 3 names for tight end. Pitts, Freiermuth, and Jordan, and I didn't even touch the rest of the class. But I'm glad that those 3 names were off the board for us.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I'm going to make a boring pick here, pretty similar to Drew, a very chalk pick, and that is Kyle Trask, quarterback from Florida. With him, I pair him with Kyle Pitts, but he's backup quarterback. I personally kind of went in thinking I was going to pump my 2nd quarterback and just try to load up on the other positions. And I mean, it worked out. I mean, I got Kyle Trask. He's definitely going under the radar because of the top 5, but I think he can, if he gets drafted, if some team takes a shot on him, late 1st round, early 2nd round, he could be a positive impact player. Maybe Atlanta Falcons, they pass on him in the 1st round, take him in the 2nd round. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. A guy that can learn under Matt Ryan for a year or 2 and then take over for him. I think he has 1st round upside. He's just not quite as polished as a guy I mean, even a guy like he's definitely a clear-cut number 6 quarterback in this class, in my opinion, is what I'm trying to say.
I actually had a different name at number
Me
6.
too.
I had Kellen Mond from.
That's what I had. That's what I had too. I had him at 6. Yep. I had Kellen Mond. I think he's I think he's got a little more upside than Kyle Trask.
That's fair.
And he's got some good tools. I like him a lot. I mean, Trask was definitely 7th. But yeah, I thought when I said earlier, I feel like there's a clear cut number 6 guy. I was gonna go with Mond, and I'm glad to see that.
Wow.
Roman, you had the same guy.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to complain about Trask too much. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate for a reason, but it was just interesting because after the top 5, it could really be anyone. And I think Mond, Trask, those are probably the only 2 names I would consider as the quarterback 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Mond is another guy we obviously didn't really talk about at all, and I didn't select him. I kind of agree where you guys are coming from. He probably does have more upside than Trask. At this point, I was kind of I only wrote down 6 quarterbacks. So I kind of just omitted him from my list. But he's a similar guy where he could be selected, 2nd round, 3rd round, and then end up, sitting behind a veteran and then be a good player for a while. I don't think just because this class is so good, in a crappier class, he probably could have been a 1st round quarterback option. Similarly with Trask, I think a couple of years ago, maybe he could have been a 1st round quarterback.
Yeah, I think the skills are definitely there. He's got to work on his accuracy a little bit, but he's definitely an intriguing prospect. Yeah. Same with Trask, too. I think they're in a similar tier.
Yeah, I get the last pick of the draft now, and obviously I have my running back 2 spot to fill. I had 2 names. My honorable mention is Trey Sermon from Ohio State. He was a bit overshadowed by Master Teague at sometimes, but I think he could be a decent pick in the mid rounds. But the play I will be taking, and I don't know if you're going to trash it or not, Chris said you were, but I'm taking Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. He had a great 2019 with over 2,000 yards and 21 touchdowns, but had a very much awful 2020. Maybe that was because of the reduced schedule. He didn't have enough time to get up to those stats again. But he had a major dip this year. Maybe if he declared for the draft last year, he would have been a better pick than where he will be now. But I'm not going to deny the talent he has, and wherever he goes in the draft, he'll be a solid pick for that team. And I think I'm higher on him than maybe both of you are.
Yeah, you definitely are. I had him at 6. That was mostly just so I could bring him up to talk crap about him. Okay, yes, he was awesome in 2019. You're 100% right. I don't really disagree with anything you said, but last year he was abysmal last year. He was horrible when he played. He ended up opting out at the end of the year to go to the draft. Just an absolute disastrous year for him. He should have left after 2019. The fact that he didn't is a huge mistake. He has some speed to his game, but his pass catching chops definitely decreased his senior year, and he cannot pass block worth a crap either. He is easily probably the worst pass blocker in this entire class. I know not everybody cares a lot about running back pass blockers, but when you get outside those top first few guys, you don't get a lot of. I mean, some of these 3rd, 4th round running backs don't get a ton of run unless they can actually block. And maybe he was going to be his path to early playing time in his career would have been, getting on the field in 3rd down situation. But if you can't block anybody, which he absolutely cannot, he is a trash can blocking running back. I don't think he's going to see the field that much personally. And I think he's going to be on the wrong side of a timeshare. And then he's going to end up, just being another mid-round running back that doesn't end up doing anything in the NFL. Like you said, he's my number 6 running back. I just don't think this class is that great in terms of running back. So I would have taken him probably. I might have just found somebody else to take, honestly, because I'm really out on him. But, he does have some talent, and he had a great 2019. Whereas I think we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now had he declared last year. But this year was it was abysmal for him personally.
Yeah, and so I agree with some of your points there, but he was really good in 2019, and last year
he was great.
Last year was a weird year for everybody, right? With COVID, with everything. So maybe I don't know personally if he had anything going on. Maybe he had some stuff going on that was impacting his play. But of the guys still available, I honestly had him at number 5. I had him above Michael Carter. I think they're pretty interchangeable though. But I mean, if I'm a team and you're in like whatever the 4th, 5th round, and you're just like, I guess we need a running back, just take a flyer on this guy because he was really good last year. If he would have declared last year, like you said, he would have been a higher pick for sure. So I think you gotta work in 2020 and COVID and everything to an extent. And I think maybe maybe I know you really went off there, and I greatly enjoyed listening to that rant. But I think there's definitely some upside there if you're a team that needs a running back
Yeah, there
and
is.
just might as well take a flyer on a guy.
I mean, yeah, he definitely has upside because he's proven that he could be productive in college and in the college game. But he's just, I mean, last year was just an absolute. I mean, it was just a train wreck of a year. I mean, he was terrible when he was on the field. Then he ended up opting out of the end of the season, which I mean, similar. I took Rashad Bateman, who similarly did that, but he was very productive before he opted out. That's why I don't really care. He still had. While Minnesota sucked, he ended up opting out more so to prepare for the draft because I think he's going to be a first round pick rather than Chuba just having he's having a brutal year in terms of just, I mean, yeah, it could have had to do with maybe he was dealing with some underlying problems. I don't know the guy personally. So if that's the case, I mean, no offense, but it's just a tough year for him. And I think he struggled like I said, I mean, I know it's not something that everybody cares about, but he definitely he graded out as one of the worst pass blocking running backs of like a recent history. So I think it's going to be a struggle for him to find playing time early in his career, but maybe he develops his game and he has, like you said, he has speed, so he has some upside for sure.
I think it just goes to show that, after the top 3 running backs, it's not very exciting as opposed to last year's class where there was running backs all over the board and even value in the 3rd round. I think it's
going to be undrafted guys too, like James Robinson.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot tougher to get a running back right if it's not Williams, Harris, or Etienne. So you can really feel our excitement not for this class.
I think, of course, I'm biased, but I think Gainwell. I think he's above Carter and
yeah, I do too. I agree.
Hubbard too. I think you could work him more in that Williams tier of running backs that could. There's some clear upside, but yeah, there's a reason that Hubbard was the last pick of the overall draft and the last running back off the board because there's just not a lot of other guys that pique anyone's interest. I think it's safe to say.
I agree.
Okay, so that's it for the draft. I guess we can kind of break down real quick. I would say, my opinion, I think Roman, you've got the best quarterback room. Running back wise, I think we're all kind of even. I would say you guys clearly have the 2 best, but then I think my depth is a little bit better, so I think that cancels out. Receiver wise, I think I have the 2 best, but I also think I have the worst. So I don't know who has the best thing there. I think Chris, you clearly have the best. You clearly have the best tight end. So. All in all, I think all of our teams are pretty solid. I think we got some clear strengths, some clear weaknesses. So good job, everybody. Did anyone else have anything they want to add about the draft in general or how it went or anything before we close out the show?
No, it was. I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be dynasty picks for our fantasy football draft. Yeah, that'll be in a couple months. I'm excited for that. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of these names we're going to see going inside the first 2 rounds of that. So it was kind of almost a little preview for that as well, for us at least, seeing some of these names, hearing some guys you guys are a little higher on than I am, trying to figure out who you guys are going to take and stuff. So for selfish reasons, it was also fun to listen to you guys talk about these guys.
Yeah, and this is just a little taste of the class so far. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be bringing a lot more draft content, maybe giving a broader overview of positions even on the defensive side as well, which we didn't touch on today.
Yeah, and there were some guys that maybe I declined to talk as much about because I didn't want you guys to see how much I liked certain guys. But yeah, overall it was a lot of fun. It's definitely getting me more excited for the NFL draft, which is less than a month away now, just around a month, a little less than a month away. But yeah, as Roman said, we will have plenty of off-season content, including increased NFL draft coverage, as well as fantasy and real-life previews for the 2021 season. Chris and I are also going to be continuing our weekly Zone Defense basketball hours as we near the playoff trade deadline's over. So this is really officially the home stretch of the NBA season. So be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us on Apple Podcasts if you have not already. Also, smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think about our takes of the top NFL draft prospect, or at least the top NFL offensive draft prospects as we near the draft. If you agree with our takes, if you disagree with our takes, is there anyone that we forgot to talk about, please let us know. But once again, we're the Zone Defense Podcast. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.